Chloe Higgins knew the meeting was over when her mother slid the little brass key across the lawyer's table. It stopped beside Chloe's hand with a soft click. "That opens the back door of the diner," Rebecca said. "You'll need it to collect the jukebox." Chloe looked at the key, then at the papers spread across the polished table. Her brother, Jack, had a blue folder containing the deed to the paid-off house on Hambrooks Avenue. Her father had already signed the transfer. Jack's wife was waiting outside, probably calling a moving company while the ink dried. Chloe had an envelope with $600 inside, and now she had a key to a shuttered diner. Christian Higgins sat back in his chair. At 54, he had perfected the tired expression he used when he wanted impatience to look like responsibility. "We can't keep paying insurance on an empty building," he said. "Whatever you want from there, take it soon." Mr. Phelps, the estate lawyer, looked down at his notes. He knew Christian had already decided how this meeting would go. Rebecca had called twice before anyone arrived, making sure the house could be transferred to Jack without another family discussion. Chloe hadn't known there was supposed to be a discussion. She turned the key over with one finger. "What about the diner itself?" Her father's mouth tightened. "It's being listed. Grandpa owned it, and now his estate owns it." "The building needs work, Chloe. I know it needs work. Then you know why it has to be sold." Jack closed his blue folder. He was 28, neatly dressed, and careful not to appear too pleased. He had a family to think about. Everyone had repeated that sentence so often it sounded like part of his legal name. Rebecca leaned toward Chloe. "You're 19. $600 is useful money at your age." Chloe glanced at the folder in front of Jack. Her mother saw the look. "The house is different." "How?" "Your brother needs stability. I live there too. You're going to community college. You can make other plans." Nobody had mentioned other plans before that morning. Chloe had left a basket of laundry running in the basement. Her work shoes were beside the back door. A grocery bag with her name written on it sat in the kitchen because Jack kept taking the yogurt she bought. Now the house belonged to him. Jack rubbed the edge of his folder with his thumb. "You don't have to leave tomorrow," he said. "We'll give you some time." "How much?" He glanced at Rebecca. "A few weeks," her mother answered. Mr. Phelps removed his glasses. "Perhaps the housing arrangement is something the family should discuss privately." "We have discussed it," Christian said. Chloe looked at him. "With who?" No one answered. The office windows faced a narrow Cambridge street wet from February rain. Cars moved slowly past the courthouse. A delivery driver hurried under an awning, carrying 2 paper bags against his chest. Ordinary things kept happening outside. Inside, Chloe learned she no longer had a bedroom. Mr. Phelps cleared his throat and returned to Gregory's personal property list. "There are several diner items without meaningful resale value. Your grandfather included a handwritten instruction regarding one of them." He turned a page. "The 1962 jukebox is to go to Chloe." Jack gave a short laugh. He didn't mean to be cruel. That almost made it worse. "That thing's still there?" "It's in the back storage room," Chloe said. She knew exactly where it was. She had helped Gregory cover it with an old tablecloth when he closed Higgins' grill. Dust had settled over the cloth for nearly 7 years. Christian shook his head. "Dad's junk." It wasn't junk to him. "It hasn't worked since before the diner closed." "It worked sometimes." Jack looked at her. "It weighs about 600 pounds. I know, it's maybe $50 in scrap." Rebecca gave him a warning look, but only because the lawyer was present. Then she reached for Chloe's wrist. "Sweetheart, nobody's making you take it. We can have someone dispose of it." Chloe pulled her hand back. "He left it to me. He also left you $600. You said that already." Rebecca sat upright. She had hoped concern would keep the meeting quiet. She loved Chloe in the way she understood love. She simply believed Jack's needs were serious and Chloe's were temporary. Christian tapped the table. "This isn't a competition?" Chloe looked at Jack's folder again. "Then why does somebody win?" Jack lowered his eyes. For a moment he remembered Sundays at Higgins' Grill. Gregory used to save him the end piece from the meatloaf because Jack liked the crisp edges. That had been before Jack decided the diner smelled like old grease, before he stopped visiting, before every invitation from his grandfather became something he meant to answer later. The memory didn't change what he wanted now. "The house has 3 bedrooms," he said quietly. "It makes sense for us." Chloe waited for him to offer one of those bedrooms. He didn't. Mr. Phelps slid the personal property receipt toward her. You'll need to sign here if you accept the bequest. She signed. Christian exhaled through his nose. Fine, but get it out by the end of the week. Chloe put the brass key in her coat pocket. She folded the $600 check without looking at it and slipped it behind her phone. Jack stood and gathered his papers. If you need help finding somewhere, I know a guy with apartments. Do you know a guy with a 600-pound jukebox apartment? He almost smiled. That's what I'm saying. Be realistic. Chloe pushed her chair under the table. Her father watched her walk to the door. Chloe. She turned. You know your grandfather loved you. Nobody in the room understood why that sentence hurt more than the rest. Yes, she said. I do. Gregory Higgins had died in January at 80. Until then, Chloe had spent every Sunday with him for as long as she could remember. When Higgins' grill was open, she sat at the counter near the pie case. Gregory gave her small jobs and pretended they mattered. She refilled the sugar jars, matched clean lids to the ketchup bottles, and wiped menus with a damp cloth. On slow afternoons, he opened the jukebox. He kept its keys on a ring attached to his belt. The cabinet glowed red and yellow while he worked. He showed Chloe how the record carriage moved and how the selector found the right song. Machines tell on themselves, he used to say. You just have to stop talking long enough to listen. When the diner closed in 2019, Christian called it overdue. Rebecca said Gregory could finally rest. Gregory didn't know what to do with rest. He moved into a small apartment near the river and kept waking before dawn. He still bought commercial coffee filters by mistake. He still carried a pencil behind one ear. Chloe kept visiting on Sundays. Sometimes they ate canned soup. Sometimes Gregory drove them to the closed diner, where he checked the pipes and opened the back door for fresh air. He never let Chloe call the place abandoned. Closed is a condition, he told her. Abandoned is a decision. She hadn't known those visits were setting her apart. She only knew her grandfather expected her at noon. If she was late, he put her sandwich under an upside-down bowl so the bread wouldn't dry out. Christian came at Christmas and on Gregory's birthday. Rebecca brought groceries when people could see her doing it. Jack called now and then, usually from his truck. Chloe came every Sunday. After the lawyers' meeting, she walked through the rain instead of riding home with her parents. Rebecca pulled alongside her near the courthouse. The passenger window came down. Get in. I'm going to the diner. In this weather, I need to see what I'm moving. Christian leaned across the console. There's nothing to see. Chloe kept walking. Her mother followed at the speed of a person searching for patience. We're trying to help you. You gave Jack the house. He has responsibilities. So do I. Not the same ones. Chloe stopped beside a parking meter. Rain collected in her hair and ran behind her ears. When were you going to tell me? Rebecca's face changed. We just told you? No. When were you going to tell me I had to leave? Christian looked toward the traffic light. Rebecca lowered her voice. Jack wants to move in quickly. You knew that. He talked about repainting the kitchen. That was a clue. Chloe stared at her. Her mother heard how it sounded, but she couldn't take it back. There's no reason to make this uglier, Rebecca said. Chloe stepped away from the car. I'll get my things tonight. That's not what I said. The traffic light changed. A driver behind them tapped his horn. Christian lifted one hand in apology and drove on. Chloe stood in the rain until their car turned the corner. Then she walked toward Race Street. Higgins' grill sat between a tailor's shop and a narrow brick building that had once sold office supplies. Its striped awning had faded to the color of dishwater. Brown paper covered the front windows. The sign above the door still said, Higgins' Grill, in red block letters. One of the G's leaned slightly lower than the rest. Chloe unlocked the side entrance. The door stuck near the bottom. She put her shoulder against it and pushed until it scraped open. Cold air met her inside. The dining room smelled of dust, old cooking oil, and the lemon cleaner Gregory used on the counter. Chairs rested upside down on the tables. The register drawer stood open. A stack of order pads remained beside it, each page printed with the diner's phone number. Chloe turned on the lights. Nothing happened. She used her phone instead. The beam moved across booths, the pie case, and the pass-through window into the kitchen. Gregory's white coffee mug still hung from a hook. The words, "World's okayest cook," had faded from years of washing. Chloe took it down and held it by the handle. She hadn't cried at the funeral. She hadn't cried at the lawyer's office. Standing behind the counter with Gregory's cold mug in her hand, she came close. A noise sounded near the kitchen. She froze. It came again, a light scratching followed by something metal falling over. Chloe grabbed a wooden rolling pin from beneath the counter. "Hello?" No answer. She moved through the kitchen. The phone light caught a rat disappearing behind the dry storage shelves. A can lid spun on the floor. Chloe lowered the rolling pin. Good. Great. The roof had leaked near the dish station. A plastic tub Gregory had placed there was full of brown water. Another drip struck the surface while she watched. The building was colder than outside. She could see her breath near the back hall. She passed Gregory's little office. His desk had been cleared, probably by Christian. 2 filing cabinets stood open and empty. At the end of the hall, she unlocked the storage room. The door swung inward 6 inches and stopped against something heavy. Chloe squeezed through. Boxes filled most of the floor. Old plates, diner baskets, metal napkin dispensers, a milkshake mixer, and a broken floor fan leaned against the walls. At the back stood the jukebox. The tablecloth had slipped from one corner. Its chrome trim showed beneath a thick layer of dust. Chloe moved closer. The machine was taller than she remembered. Its rounded top nearly reached her chin. The speaker grill had a dark stain along one side. A crack ran through the plastic above the song selector. She pulled away the cloth. The jukebox looked tired, but it didn't look finished. Chloe wiped the glass with her sleeve. Behind it, rows of paper song labels sat crooked in their slots. Gregory had written some titles by hand when the original labels disappeared. She recognized his blocky handwriting. Moon River. Stand By Me. Sitting on the dock of the bay. The last record they had played together had been an old soul song Gregory claimed sounded better with grill noise behind it. Chloe couldn't remember its name. She could remember him tapping 2 fingers against the counter. She pressed one of the selection buttons. Nothing happened. The plug lay coiled behind the cabinet. A business card was tucked into the edge of the frame. Chloe pulled it free. Gray's Vintage Repair. Below the name was a Cambridge address and the words radios, record players, amplifiers, small appliances. Brian Gray had come to Gregory's funeral. He'd stood near the back, wearing a clean work shirt and holding his cap in both hands. Chloe knew him from the diner, though she hadn't seen much of him lately. She called the number. A man answered after 4 rings. Gray's Vintage Repair. "Is this Brian? Depends who's asking. It's Chloe Higgins." The joke left his voice. "Chloe. I'm sorry. I meant to call you." "That's okay." "No, it isn't. I just didn't know what to say." She looked at the jukebox. "Do you still work on old music machines?" There was a short silence. "Sometimes. Grandpa left me his." Another silence followed, longer this time. "He did? My family wants it out of the diner by Friday. Where are you putting it?" "I was hoping you might know." Brian breathed out. "I've got space in my shop if we move 2 cabinets. That jukebox is heavy, though." "I know. And the back stairs at the diner are bad. I know that, too. Are you there now?" "Yes. Don't try plugging it in. I wasn't going to." "You were thinking about it." Chloe looked at the coiled cord. "Maybe. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Brian arrived in a white van with 1 blue rear door and the shop name painted by hand along the side. He wore work pants, a brown jacket, and the same cap he'd held at the funeral. He stopped inside the dining room. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he touched the edge of the counter. "Your grandfather never threw out a single thing that might be useful. He threw out people." Brian glanced at her. "Not many. He left Dad the diner to sell." "I heard." "He left Jack the house through Dad." Brian took off his cap. "And you?" $600 and the jukebox." His eyes moved toward the back hall. "That sounds like Gregory." Chloe stiffened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Brian heard the anger and accepted it. "It means he did things for reasons he didn't always explain. Everyone keeps telling me he loved me. That's not an explanation." "No. Do you know why he left me that machine?" "No." Brian put his cap back on. "But I know he cared who touched it." They inspected the route from the storage room to the loading door. The floor near the kitchen had softened from the roof leak. Brian tested each section with the heel of his boot. "We'll need sheets of plywood," he said. "And a proper appliance dolly. Mine won't take the weight. I have $600. Keep it. I can pay you. You can help me." "That's different." It took 2 days to move the jukebox. On the first morning, Brian brought plywood, straps, and a rented hydraulic dolly. Chloe arrived wearing Gregory's old diner apron over her clothes because she didn't own work coveralls. Brian looked at the apron. You planning to serve breakfast? It has pockets. That it does. They cleared boxes from the storage room. Every box seemed to contain another object Gregory had believed might be useful. Bent forks, extension cords, coffee pot lids without matching pots. Brian kept pausing over small things. This timer ran the grill lights. This was the first radio I fixed here. Gregory kept this? Chloe noticed he never called Gregory Mr. Higgins. You knew him a long time? Brian rested a box on the floor. I started working for him when I was 19. Here? Back room. I was supposed to wash dishes. Mostly I took apart whatever stopped working. Did he teach you? He let me ruin cheap things until I stopped ruining them. That sounded like Gregory. By late afternoon, the jukebox stood on the hydraulic dolly. They strapped it tightly and eased it into the hall. One wheel struck the edge of the plywood. The machine tilted toward Chloe. Brian caught the side with both hands. Back up. I've got it. You don't. She hated hearing those words after the week she'd had. I said, I've got it, and I'm telling you it'll crush your foot. She stepped back. Brian steadied the machine, reset the wheel, and looked at her. This thing doesn't care what you're trying to prove. Chloe pulled off her gloves. I'm not trying to prove anything. All right, I just need one thing that's mine to stay mine. Brian's expression softened, but he didn't offer comfort she hadn't asked for. Then, let's move it without breaking it. They rolled the jukebox through the kitchen and out the loading door. Rain had stopped, but the alley remained slick. Brian anchored the ramp while Chloe controlled the rear strap. At the van, both of them were breathing hard. Jack's truck turned into the alley. He parked behind them and stepped out. I've been looking for you, he said. My phone was in my coat. Mom said you cleared your room. You need it, not today. Chloe tightened one strap. Jack looked at the jukebox. You're really taking it? That's why there's a van. He walked around the machine. This is worse than I remember. Brian said nothing. Jack nodded toward him. You Gray? Brian, Gray. My grandfather mentioned you? Did he? The question was simple. Jack still heard the doubt inside it. He turned back to Chloe. You can stay at the house until you find a place. Mom said a few weeks. I'm saying longer. How long? We don't need a date right now. You already had one. You just didn't tell me. Jack shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. He had come intending to be generous. He wanted Chloe grateful enough to stop looking at the folder he'd carried from the lawyer's office. I didn't decide everything, he said. You accepted everything. That house was going to Dad, and Dad gave it to you. I have a family to think about. Chloe looked at him. Jack sighed. Can we not do this in an alley? You came to the alley. Brian checked the van straps, giving them what privacy he could. Jack glanced at the open diner door. Dad wants the building cleared. If there's anything else you want, take it now. Like what? I don't know. Grandpa's mug, pictures, whatever matters to you. The house mattered. Jack's face closed. I'm trying, Chloe. So am I. She climbed into the passenger seat. Brian shut the rear doors. Before getting behind the wheel, he looked at Jack. Move your truck, please. Gray's Vintage Repair occupied a low cinder block building near the edge of town. Old radios filled the front windows. Inside, the shop smelled of solar, machine oil, and coffee heated too many times. Brian had cleared a space near his main workbench. They lowered the jukebox from the van and rolled it inside. One caster had seized. The cabinet dragged sideways across the concrete. Chloe stood back when they finally set it upright. Under the shop lights, the damage looked worse. Veneer had peeled from the lower edge. Rust marked the back panel. The power cord had split near the plug. Brian crouched beside it. It needs more than a fuse. How much more? Won't know until we open it. And if it's ruined, then we decide what ruined means. He handed her a screwdriver. They removed the rear cover together. Dust coated the amplifier and wiring. A mouse had built a nest near the transformer. Several rubber sleeves had hardened and cracked. Chloe stared inside. I can't afford this. I didn't give you a price. You were going to. I was going to tell you we start by cleaning. He found her a pair of safety glasses. They spent an hour brushing dust from the cabinet and labeling wires with strips of masking tape. Brian worked carefully, but he wasn't sentimental. He discarded chewed insulation and set corroded parts into a metal tray. Chloe cleaned the speaker housing. Her hand caught on a raised screw. This one doesn't match. Brian leaned closer. 3 screws had rounded steel heads. The 4th was flat and slightly darker. Gregory replaced things with whatever fit, he said. He turned it with his screwdriver. The screw resisted, then came loose with a dry squeak. Brian tapped the speaker panel with the handle. Most of it answered with a solid knock. Near the bottom, the sound changed. It rang hollow. Brian tapped it again. Chloe stopped brushing. "What's behind there? There shouldn't be anything." He moved the screwdriver 2 inches and tapped once more. The hollow sound came back, clear enough that neither of them could mistake it. Brian looked at Chloe, then at the mismatched screw. "Your grandfather built this panel," he said. "You saw him make it? Not the first time. I saw him take it apart and rebuild it." "When?" "Back when I started at the diner. He made me hold a flashlight for about an hour and complained the whole time." Brian ran one finger along the panel's lower edge. "The speaker cabinet should end here. This piece sits farther forward. Why didn't you ask him?" "I did." "What did he say?" "He said the jukebox was his." "That was it?" That was usually enough with Gregory. Brian removed the other screws. He set each one in a row on the workbench, keeping the mismatched screws separate. The panel stayed in place. He slipped a thin putty knife around the edge. It caught near the bottom right corner. "There's a clip behind it," he said. "How do we get to it?" "Carefully." He angled a flashlight through the narrow gap. Chloe held the panel steady while he reached inside with a hooked piece of wire. The clip released. The panel tipped forward in their hands. Behind it sat a shallow wooden box built between the speaker housing and the outer cabinet. The wood was darker than the rest. 4 small finishing nails held a thin cover over it. Chloe touched one corner. He hid something. "Looks that way?" "Did you know this was here?" Brian met her eyes. No, she believed him. He could have pretended not to recognize Gregory's workmanship. Instead, he had pointed it out before they knew what it meant. Brian handed her a small nail puller. "You should open it." Chloe fitted the edge beneath the first nail. Her hand slipped. "Slow down," he said. "I am going slow. You're trying to make slow go faster." She gave him a look. "That's another Gregory line, isn't it?" "Unfortunately." The first nail came free, then the second. The last 2 were easier. Chloe lifted the wooden cover. A folded sheet of yellow paper lay inside. Nothing else. No money, no jewelry, no explanation. The paper had been placed in a clear diner sandwich bag. The bag had gone cloudy with age, but the paper inside looked dry. Chloe slid it onto the workbench. Brian turned off the shop radio. She opened the bag and unfolded the paper. At the top, in faded type, were the words "Residential Apartment Lease." The date beneath them was September 1st, 1974. Chloe read the first line twice. "This agreement is between Gregory O. Higgins, landlord, and Maria Rosales, tenant." Brian leaned over without touching the page. "What address?" She read it aloud. 414 Choptank Avenue, Cambridge, Maryland. "Do you know it?" "No." "Neither do I." The lease covered a second-floor apartment in a row house. The monthly rent was $115. Water and heat were included. The tenant was responsible for electricity and keeping the back stairs clear. At the bottom, Maria Rosales had signed in narrow, careful writing. Gregory's signature was larger. The G swept beneath the rest of his name. Chloe knew that signature. It appeared on birthday cards and permission slips. Gregory always used his middle initial on formal papers, though he joked that the O stood for ornery. She traced the air above it without touching. He owned an apartment building? Maybe. It says landlord. It does. Why would he hide a lease in a jukebox? Brian looked into the empty cavity. That's a better question. Chloe read the lease again. The paper named Gregory as the owner's contact. It gave the diner's old telephone number and an address on Ray Street for rent payments. There was no mention of a bank or property company. Could it be fake? Why make a fake lease and hide it for 50 years? I don't know. Why make a real one and hide it? Brian pulled a clean sheet of brown packing paper from a roll. He placed the lease on it, keeping it away from oil and loose screws. We can find out whether the address exists. Chloe reached for her phone. A map showed Choptank Avenue less than 2 miles away. The numbered properties ran along several blocks near the river. 414 appeared as a valid address. The street image was old and blurred. It showed 3 connected brick row houses with shallow front steps. One had green trim around the windows. Chloe enlarged the picture. That doesn't prove Grandpa owned it. No, but the building's there. Yes? She looked at the jukebox. The open panel left a dark rectangle across its back. Gregory had placed the lease where casual repairs wouldn't find it. Someone had to notice the sound, remove the grill, release the hidden clip, and pull 4 nails from a cover. He hadn't forgotten the paper there. Chloe folded it along its original lines and returned it to the bag. I'm going to the address. Today? Yes, it'll be dark soon. Then I'll look from the sidewalk. Brian checked the clock above his workbench. He had 2 customer repairs due by morning. A woman from Easton needed her father's radio for a memorial gathering. A restaurant owner was already annoyed about a delayed amplifier. Brian's loyalty to Gregory didn't erase his work. I can't close yet, he said. I didn't ask you to. No, but you were about to leave with a document we just pulled from a machine. It belongs to me. The jukebox belongs to you. We don't know who owns that paper. It was inside my jukebox. I understand that. You sound like my father. Brian's expression hardened. Your father wants you to stop looking. I'm telling you to take a picture, put the original somewhere safe, and don't wave it around at an unfamiliar address after dark. Chloe held his gaze. He was right, which didn't improve her mood. She took clear photographs of both sides. Brian found an archival sleeve left from a radio manual restoration. They placed the lease inside and locked it in a metal file cabinet. You keep customer papers in there? She asked. And my tax records, so nobody would steal them. Nobody's ever tried. That wasn't my question. He locked the drawer and gave her the key. Chloe added it to the ring with the diner key. I'll go tomorrow morning. I'll drive. You said you have work. I also have a van. That's not the same thing. It is when the question is how we're getting there. She almost argued again. Instead, she picked up the speaker panel. What do we do with this? Put it back loosely. We're not done examining the cabinet. The words caught her attention. You think there could be something else? I think Gregory changed the inside. Until we know why, we pay attention. That evening, Chloe returned to Hambrooks Avenue. Jack's truck occupied the driveway. A stack of flattened moving boxes leaned against the garage. Her key still opened the front door. Rebecca stood in the kitchen wrapping plates and newspaper. She had already emptied the cabinet above the refrigerator, though Jack wouldn't move in for several weeks. Christian sat at the table with a mug of coffee. He looked surprised when Chloe entered with a duffel bag. You didn't have to clear out tonight? Yes, I did. Rebecca lowered a plate. We said you had time. You said Jack needs stability. Those aren't the same thing. They were this morning. Chloe walked toward the stairs. Jack appeared at the top, carrying a cardboard box marked bedroom. Where are you going? To get the rest of my clothes. You took most of them. I left my work uniform. Rebecca followed Chloe into the hall. Where are you staying? With Dana. Dana Cook worked the closing shift with Chloe at a grocery store near Sunburst Highway. She was 21 and rented half of a small duplex with a cousin who traveled for work. She had offered Chloe her couch for 10 days, maybe longer if the cousin's schedule held. Rebecca didn't know Dana well enough to approve. That's not a plan, she said. It's tonight's plan. Come home with us. Christian and Rebecca had a 2-bedroom condominium near the marina. Its second bedroom held Rebecca's sewing table and a treadmill covered with clothes. Chloe had slept on their couch once during a storm. Christian woke before dawn and asked when she planned to leave because he wanted to watch the weather report. I'm fine at Dana's. Her father carried his coffee into the hall. This is getting dramatic. I came for a shirt. You're moving out in the rain to make a point. It stopped raining. That's not what I meant. Chloe went upstairs. Her old room looked unfamiliar already. Jack had taken down the corkboard above her desk. The photographs and ticket stubs were stacked on the mattress. A paint sample had been brushed across one wall. Pale gray. Jack stood in the doorway. That was Mom. I told her to wait. Chloe opened the closet. What's this room going to be? An office, probably. So nobody needs it. Not immediately. She put 2 shirts and a pair of jeans into the duffel. Jack watched her take a framed photograph from the dresser. It showed Chloe and Gregory behind the diner counter. Gregory held a burnt pancake on a spatula. Chloe was laughing at something outside the frame. Is that all you're taking? He asked. I'll come back for the chair. You can take the bed. Where would I put it? Jack looked away. Chloe wrapped the photograph in a sweatshirt. We found something in the jukebox, she said. He looked back quickly. What? A lease. What kind of lease? An apartment lease. Grandpa's name is on it as the landlord. Jack waited for more. That's it? That's all we found. What year? 1974. He relaxed. Probably an old side job. He owned the apartment. Or managed it for someone. It says landlord. People wrote all kinds of things on homemade contracts back then. It was hidden behind the speaker. That bothered him more than he showed. Jack had received a house that morning. He didn't believe a yellow page could threaten that. Still, Gregory hadn't been careless. If he hid something, he expected someone to find it. Did you show Dad? Not yet. You should. Why? Because Grandpa was his father. He was my grandfather. Come on, Chloe. She closed the duffel. Tell him yourself. Downstairs, Rebecca was folding the newspaper around another plate. Jack followed Chloe into the kitchen. She found an old lease in the jukebox. Christian looked up. What lease? Chloe set down her bag and showed him the photograph on her phone. He enlarged it with 2 fingers. His brow tightened at Gregory's signature. Where was this? Behind the speaker panel. You opened the machine. We're repairing it. With Brian Gray? Yes. Rebecca stopped wrapping. Chloe, that machine may be worth something as an antique. You shouldn't let a repairman take it apart without an estimate. Yesterday it was junk. I didn't call it junk. Dad did. Christian handed back the phone. This is nothing. You didn't know about it. I don't remember every property Dad worked on. He owned it. Maybe briefly. Did you know he was a landlord? No, because he wasn't. Not in any serious way. Jack leaned against the counter. It might still be worth checking. Christian gave him a sharp look. Checking what? A 52-year-old rental agreement? The building still exists, Chloe said. Her father's face changed slightly. You looked it up? Yes. Rebecca placed the wrapped plate into a box. This is exactly what worries me. What is? You've lost your grandfather. Now you've lost your room, and you're trying to make this old machine mean more than it does. I didn't lose my room. Chloe, you gave it away. Rebecca pressed her lips together. Christian's chair scraped against the floor. Brian should have called me when he found the document. Why? Because this concerns Dad's estate. The jukebox was left to me. The paper might not have been. Chloe gripped the handle of her duffel. There it was. The machine had been worthless until it produced 1 page her father hadn't seen. If it's nothing, why do you want it? I didn't say I wanted it. You said Brian should have called you. Because I'm handling the estate. Mr. Phelps is handling the estate. Christian stood. Give me the original. I'll ask him about it. No. The room went quiet. It was the first time Chloe had refused her father without softening the word. Christian looked almost confused. I'm not stealing it from you. I didn't say you were. You're acting like it. I'm keeping it safe. Rebecca stepped between them, though neither had moved. Let the adults figure out whether it matters. Chloe lifted the duffel. I'll figure out whether it matters. Don't be foolish, Christian said. Sell the jukebox for parts, keep the money, and stop chasing some fantasy with a repairman. Jack frowned. Dad, nobody said fantasy. I know where this goes. She finds an old receipt, decides there's a mystery, and spends every dollar she has following it. Chloe picked up the framed photograph. Then it'll be my $600. She left before anyone could answer. Dana's couch folded inward near the middle. Chloe lay awake with one knee higher than the other, listening to the refrigerator cycle on and off. Her duffel sat beside the coffee table. The photograph of Gregory rested against a lamp. At midnight, Jack sent a message. Don't make this bigger than it is. A second message followed. Dad's just worried. Chloe turned her phone face down. She wasn't sure the lease meant anything. Christian might be right about that part. Gregory could have owned one building for a month and sold it. Maria Rosales might have moved away decades ago. But the lease had been hidden. Her father wanted the original before he knew why. That was enough. In the morning, Chloe met Brian outside his shop. He carried the archival sleeve in a flat document case. You tell your family? He asked. My brother did. How'd that go? My father wants the lease. Brian unlocked the van. Did you give it to him? No. He nodded once. That was all. They reached Choptank Avenue shortly after 9. The row houses from the map stood beneath bare trees. 414 had red brick, green window trim, and 2 front doors. A narrow passage ran along one side toward the rear. Someone had swept the steps. A clay pot beside the door held rosemary that had survived the winter. Brian checked the address. This is it. Chloe looked up at the second-floor windows. Clean curtains, a lamp, a hanging plant. Not an empty building, not a demolished one, not an address typed on meaningless paper. She climbed the steps and pressed the bell. Nothing happened. Brian tried the brass knocker. Footsteps moved inside. The door opened 3 inches, held by a security chain. An older woman with silver hair looked at Chloe, then at Brian. Yes? Chloe took out her phone. I'm sorry to bother you. We're looking for Maria Rosales. The woman's eyes narrowed. Who are you? My name is Chloe Higgins. The woman looked at her more carefully. Higgins? Gregory Higgins was my grandfather. The chain came free. The woman opened the door and stared at the photograph of the lease on Chloe's screen. Where did you get this? It was hidden inside his jukebox. Maria touched Gregory's signature with one finger. Then she looked at Chloe again. You'd better come in. The hallway was narrow and warm. A radiator knocked somewhere behind the wall. Maria led them into a front room with lace curtains and a sofa covered in a brown slipcover. Framed photographs crowded the mantel. A small television played a morning cooking program with the sound muted. Sit, she said. Chloe and Brian sat together on the sofa. Maria remained standing. Let me see the paper. Brian opened the document case and placed the lease on the coffee table. Maria didn't reach for it immediately. She studied the page as if it might change when she touched it. I haven't seen this in years. You knew Grandpa kept it? Chloe asked. I knew he had a copy. I didn't know where. Did he own this building? Maria looked toward the ceiling. He owned it when I moved in. He owned it last month. Chloe sat forward. Last month? Yes. He never sold it? No. Brian glanced at Chloe, but let Maria continue. I came here in 1974, Maria said. The upstairs had 1 bedroom, a bad stove, and wallpaper that peeled whenever it rained. Gregory replaced the stove before I finished unpacking. You've lived here ever since? 52 years. Chloe looked around the room again. This wasn't an old arrangement that had ended before her father was born. Maria had paid rent to Gregory throughout Chloe's entire life. How much is the rent now? Brian asked. Maria named an amount so low that Chloe thought she'd misheard. For this whole apartment. For the whole apartment. Did Grandpa ever raise it? Sometimes. Never by much. He said repairs cost money, but people shouldn't lose their homes because the roof needed shingles. Maria finally picked up the lease. The paper trembled slightly in her hands. He typed this at the diner, the E stuck on that typewriter. See? She pointed to a faint letter in the word tenant. He came here with 2 copies and a jar of red paint. He fixed the back railing while I read it. So it's real, Chloe said. Maria gave her a dry look. I signed it. I'm sorry. I meant, my family thinks it may have been some side job. Your family didn't know? My father said Grandpa wasn't a landlord in any serious way. Maria's mouth tightened. He was serious when the boiler stopped. Chloe took out her phone. Do you have anything recent with his name on it? Maria looked at the phone, then at Brian. Why? I need to prove this didn't end 50 years ago. To who? My father. Maybe the estate lawyer. Maria set the lease down. What happened when Gregory died? The question was simple. Chloe still found it difficult to answer. The house went to my brother. The diner's going up for sale. I got the jukebox and $600. And the buildings? What buildings? Maria turned toward a small writing desk beside the window. She opened the lower drawer and removed a green metal cash box. A rubber band held the lid shut. My hands don't manage that little lock anymore, she said. Brian removed the band and lifted the lid. Inside were rent receipts arranged in bundles by year. Maria took out the newest bundle. Each slip carried Gregory's signature. Some older ones used the printed name Higgins Property Account. Later receipts read GH Community Properties. The most recent was dated December, just weeks before Gregory died. Chloe held it under the window light. He came here in December, every first Sunday. Sunday? He collected from me after you left his apartment. Chloe pictured those afternoons. Gregory sometimes checked his watch near 3 and said he had errands. She thought he meant groceries or the pharmacy. He had never returned with shopping bags. Why didn't he tell me? Maria sat in the chair across from them. That's something you'll have to ask him in your own way. He's gone. I know. The radiator knocked again. Maria looked older when she said it, not weak, just tired from having another person removed from a routine she had trusted. Chloe turned the receipt over. Why does this say properties? Because this wasn't the only one. How many were there? I don't know. But you said buildings. Gregory had others. I met some of the tenants over the years. He sent people here when they needed help filling out forms. What kind of forms? Rent assistance? Insurance? A complaint about a heating bill? Where did they live? Maria named 2 streets. One was near the hospital. The other crossed Ray Street several blocks beyond the diner. Chloe wrote them in her phone. Do you know the addresses? Not all of them. Did Grandpa ever talk about selling? He talked about people offering. What people? Men with clean shoes who never looked at the roof. Brian smiled faintly. That sounds like him? Maria didn't smile back. Last summer, someone left a letter asking to buy this building. Gregory tore it in half. Do you still have it? No, I don't keep other people's trash. Chloe looked at the rent receipts again. Did he tell you what would happen after he died? Maria folded her hands. Yes. The room seemed to grow quieter. What did he say? He said somebody would come. Who? He didn't give me a name. When did he tell you? In November. He sat where you're sitting. Chloe leaned back against the sofa. Maria's eyes remained on her. He said his family might think the buildings were money waiting to be picked up. He said they weren't. They were homes. Brian looked toward the front window. What exactly did he ask you to do? He said. To pay attention. To what? To whoever came after him. Maria looked at Chloe. He said the person who inherited from him would have to prove they understood the promise. What promise? That the rent stayed fair, that repairs got done, that no one got pushed out because the ground underneath them became expensive. Chloe rubbed her thumb across the edge of the receipt. Did he say the person who inherited would own this building? He said whoever came would have to earn my trust before they got my help. What help? Maria shook her head. First, you tell me something. All right. Why did you take the jukebox? Because he left it to me. That isn't what I asked. Chloe looked at Brian. He offered no answer for her. My family wanted to throw it away, she said. I didn't. Why not? It was in the diner for as long as I can remember. So were the napkin holders. He didn't teach me how to fix those. Maria waited. Chloe thought about the dark storage room, the old song labels, Gregory tapping his fingers against the counter. It still felt like his, she said. Maria's expression eased. That's closer. She rose and carried the cash box to the desk. From the same drawer, she removed a sealed white envelope. Gregory was written across the front. I had January's rent ready, she said. He went into the hospital before the first Sunday. She held it out. Chloe didn't take it. What am I supposed to do with that? If you're the one who came, it may be yours to collect. I don't know that. Neither do I. Then keep it. Maria raised one eyebrow. You don't want the money? It isn't mine because I found a lease. Brian watched Maria's hand lower. That answer mattered to her. Chloe could see it did, though Maria said nothing about trust. Has anyone contacted you about the rent? Chloe asked. A man from a law office called. He asked whether I had an emergency contact for Gregory. Did he ask for money? No. Did you tell him about the building? I asked if he knew who owned it. He said he'd call me back. Did he? No. Chloe photographed the recent receipts with Maria's permission. She also photographed the printed name, G.H. Community Properties. Maria wrote down the 2 street names she remembered. Her handwriting still matched the signature on the old lease. Before they left, she took them through the kitchen to the rear stairs. One tread had split near the outer edge. A temporary board covered it. The handrail moved when Maria touched it. Gregory was going to fix this in January, she said. Brian tested the rail. He shouldn't have been doing stairs by himself, I told him. He listened well, only when it suited him. Chloe crouched beside the broken tread. Has anyone looked at it since? The carpenter Gregory used isn't answering. I don't know if he knows Gregory died. Don't use these stairs. The trash bins are back there. Use the front until somebody checks them. Maria crossed her arms. At 78, I don't enjoy carrying trash through my front room. I'll take it out today. That solves today. I know. Chloe stood. The split step was a small thing. It was also the first thing the hidden lease had led her to, that couldn't wait for a family argument. She took Maria's trash to the bins. Brian tightened the loose handrail screws as a temporary measure, then wrote the stair measurements on the back of one of his business cards. "This needs a carpenter," he told Maria, "not an electronics man pretending. You seem to know which end of a screwdriver to hold. That's how the pretending starts." Outside, Chloe stood beside the van and looked up at the building. A roof gutter sagged over the side passage. Paint had worn from the second-floor sill. None of it looked grand or secret. People lived there. That changed the question. It no longer mattered only why Gregory hid the lease. Someone had to learn what he left unfinished. Brian opened the driver's door. "County Land Records," he said. "Today? You have work?" "Not until 4. I have the radio delivery at 11. "After that, yes." Chloe checked the time. "What do we ask for?" "Who owns 414 Choptank Avenue? And the other buildings? We don't have addresses. We have streets." Brian got into the van. That's a start. They delivered the restored radio to a small house outside Easton. The customer turned it on in her kitchen and cried when an old station came through clearly. Brian adjusted the dial, showed her which switch not to force, and carried the empty repair blanket back to the van. He had a life built around returning familiar voices to people. Chloe understood why Gregory had trusted him near the jukebox. On the drive back to Cambridge, her phone rang. Jack's name appeared. She let it ring twice before answering. "Where are you?" "Why?" "Dad called Mr. Phelps about the lease." Chloe sat straighter. "What did he say?" "That an old lease doesn't prove current ownership." "I know. And if Grandpa owned anything outside the estate paperwork, it has to be handled properly. Handled by who?" "The executor." "Dad, for now." Brian kept his eyes on the road. Jack lowered his voice. "I'm trying to keep this from becoming a fight. Then stop calling it Dad's. I didn't. You said he gets to handle it. He does. Until we know what it is. Especially until we know what it is." Chloe watched fields pass beyond the window. Maria paid Grandpa rent in December. Jack was silent. "Who's Maria?" "The tenant on the lease." "She's alive?" "She lives at the same address." Another silence. "Chloe, don't take money from her." "I didn't." "Good." The relief in his voice sounded less like concern for Maria and more like relief that Chloe hadn't gained control of anything. "Dad wants the original lease brought to Mr. Phelps," Jack said. "It's safe." "That isn't an answer." "It's my answer." "What are you doing now?" "Going to County Land Records." Jack's breathing changed. "Wait for Dad." "No. You don't know how property records work? There are people there who do. You're 19. And the address exists. That doesn't make you an owner. I didn't say it did. Then what are you trying to prove?" Chloe looked at Maria's street names on her phone. That Grandpa didn't hide this for nothing. Jack spoke more carefully. "If there are buildings, we should deal with them as a family." That was new. Yesterday, the lease had been old paper. Now, Jack said buildings. "We didn't deal with the house as a family. That was different. It keeps being different when you get something." Jack ended the call. At the county office, a security guard directed them to the land records counter on the second floor. Elijah Shelton sat behind a computer with 2 monitors and a stack of document requests beside his keyboard. His nameplate identified him as the land records clerk. He listened while Chloe explained what they had found. "Do you have the owner's full name?" he asked. "Gregory Owen Higgins." "And the property address?" She gave it to him. Elijah typed, waited, then studied the screen. "When did he die?" "January." "Has the estate filed a transfer?" "Not for this. Nobody knew about it." Elijah looked at Chloe over the top of his monitor. Somebody knew. He turned the second screen slightly toward her. The current owner wasn't listed as Gregory Higgins. It was listed as GH Community Properties, LLC. Elijah enlarged the record and pointed to the filing date. The company took title in 1985. "Who owns the company?" Chloe asked. "That isn't always shown in land records. But it was Grandpa's? The initials fit. That doesn't prove anything by itself." Chloe took out her phone and showed him the rent receipt. Elijah compared the printed company name with the deed. "That helps." He searched the Maryland Business Registry. The first filing listed Gregory O. Higgins as the company's organizer and resident agent. The mailing address was Higgins Grill on Race Street. Chloe read the screen slowly. He started a company and used the diner address. That appears to be what happened. In 1985? Yes. Brian leaned on the counter. "Can you see what else the company owns?" "Not with one button." Elijah said it the way someone explained a common disappointment. Public records were public, but that didn't mean they were tidy. He opened a search window and entered the company name as a grantee. The first result was the Choptank Avenue property. The second showed a brick duplex on Academy Street, purchased in 1987. The third was a 3-unit building on Cedar Street. Elijah stopped typing and reached for a yellow legal pad. Let's do this properly. He wrote each address and deed reference by hand. Chloe watched the list grow. A row house on Muir Street, a corner building on Washington Street with 2 apartments above a former barber shop, a 4-unit property on High Street. Elijah checked alternate spellings and older deed books. He searched Gregory's full name, his middle initial, and the company name without punctuation. When he finished, 6 addresses were written on the pad. Chloe counted them twice. 6 buildings? 6 still titled to the company, Elijah said. There may have been others that were sold. I'm only telling you what the current index shows. Are there mortgages not recorded against these properties? What does that mean? It means I don't see any open mortgage liens here. It doesn't tell us whether there are unpaid taxes, repair bills, private loans, or other obligations. Brian read the addresses. I've driven past the Washington Street place 100 times. So have I, Chloe said. It was close to the grocery store where she worked. She had waited for the bus across from it. The building had always been part of Cambridge's background. People entered carrying laundry or came out with travel mugs. Chloe had never imagined Gregory keeping its keys in his pocket. Elijah printed the deed summaries. The printer behind him clicked and hummed. May I ask why you're looking for these? Chloe explained the jukebox panel. She kept it short and showed him the photograph of the old lease. Elijah looked more interested when he saw the date. Do you have the original? It's locked up. Keep it that way. Don't laminate it, don't write on it. We put it in an archival sleeve. Good. He examined Gregory's signature on the photograph. This lease isn't part of the land record. It helps connect him to the property, but the recorded deed is stronger evidence of ownership. Then the company owns all 6. The company holds title to all 6. The next question is, who controls the company now? My father says he's handling the estate. That may be true. It may also be incomplete. How can it be incomplete? If Mr. Higgins owned the company personally, his membership interest may pass through his estate. If he assigned it somewhere else, that document controls. I can't tell you which happened from this screen. What do you mean somewhere else? A business agreement? A trust? Another owner? You need the company records and whatever estate documents exist. Chloe remembered Christian asking for the original lease. Would my father know? If he had the documents. He didn't know about the buildings. Elijah removed the printed pages from the tray. Then don't assume anyone has a complete file. He stamped the deed summaries as certified copies. Chloe paid the modest copying fee from the cash in her wallet. Elijah slid the pages across the counter. The company filed annual reports. Those are with the State Business Registry, not this office. Some can be ordered online. Can you help us do that? I can show you where. I can't interpret them for you. He wrote down the website and the document numbers. Chloe gathered the papers. Why did you say somebody knew? Because buildings don't keep themselves on the land record. Deeds get filed, taxes get paid, annual reports get renewed. So someone has been doing that. Until recently, yes. Outside the county office, Chloe sat on a concrete bench and spread the address list across her knees. 6 buildings, not 6 hidden rooms or 6 old papers. 6 places where people paid rent and expected heat, dry stairs, and working locks. Brian sat beside her. You all right? I don't know. That's fair. My grandfather complained when coffee went up 20 cents. He owned 6 buildings. Both things can be true. My father didn't know. That also seems true. Chloe folded the list. Do you think Grandpa was lying to everybody? Brian considered it. He was private. Sometimes private becomes secret without a person noticing. You don't hide a lease inside a wall by accident? No. And he told Maria somebody would come. Yes. But he didn't tell her who. Apparently not. Chloe stood. I want to see the buildings. All of them? All 6. They started with Academy Street. The duplex had pale blue siding and a shared front porch. 2 bicycles were chained to the railing. A bucket beneath a gutter caught a slow drip. They didn't knock. Chloe stood on the sidewalk and checked the address against the deed. At Cedar Street, an upstairs window was open despite the cold. Someone had placed a row of small plants along the sill. The front steps had been patched with newer concrete. The Muir Street row house had fresh black paint around its door. A handwritten note asked delivery drivers not to block the basement entrance. The Washington Street building looked larger from the opposite curb. The old barber shop downstairs was empty, but curtains hung in the apartment windows above it. Chloe counted 3 mailboxes. "We're looking at people's homes," she said. Brian nodded. By the time they reached High Street, Chloe had to leave for work. Brian dropped her at the grocery store with the certified copies inside her backpack. She spent her shift stocking canned vegetables and checking the time. At break, she ordered the company's public filings from her phone. The website charged a small fee for each record. The $600 was shrinking. She hesitated over the payment screen, then entered her card number. This was the first money Gregory had left her that she chose to spend. She wanted to be sure she was spending it on an answer, not a hope. The records arrived by email before her break ended. The formation document was short. Gregory was the only name listed. Annual reports followed for every year the company existed. Most gave Higgins Grill as the mailing address. After the diner closed, Gregory changed it to his apartment. The latest report had been filed in April of 2025. He hadn't forgotten the company. He had kept it active. Chloe forwarded the documents to Brian and locked her phone in her work locker. When her shift ended, Jack waited near the employee entrance. He leaned against his truck with 2 cups of coffee. Chloe nearly walked past him. "One of those for me? If you want it." She took the cup. It was sweetened the way she liked. "What are you doing here? Trying to talk without Dad in the room. That's new. I deserve that." She waited. Jack opened the passenger door but didn't get in. "Dad told me you found 6 properties. He called the county office. He called Mr. Phelps." "Mr. Phelps made some calls? How did they know there were 6? You told me where you were going. I didn't tell you what we found." Jack looked uncomfortable. "Dad went down there after you left." Chloe gripped the coffee cup. "He asked Elijah for my records? They're public." "That isn't what I asked." He searched the company name himself. "What company name?" "GH Community Properties." "Who told him that?" "Mr. Phelps got it from the deed index." Chloe looked toward the store's loading area. An employee pushed empty carts into a metal row. The discovery no longer belonged to a quiet search between her, Brian, and Maria. Her father was moving through the same records behind her. "What does Dad want?" she asked, to understand what happened. He said it was nothing. He was wrong. Jack had no trouble saying that when Christian wasn't present. "What do you want?" "I think we should help each other." "With what?" "The buildings. We don't own them." "Not yet." Chloe heard the word. Jack did too. "I mean, the family doesn't know how they're held," he said. "You mean you don't?" "Neither do you." "No, but I found them." "You found a lease. County records found the buildings." She handed his coffee back. "I have to go." "Wait." Jack set both cups on the truck roof. "I work with contractors. I know insurance people. I deal with property maintenance at the warehouse. You don't have to figure this out alone. Brian's helping." Brian fixes radios. He also knew Grandpa. "So did I." "Not lately?" Jack flinched. Chloe regretted the sharpness, but not enough to take it back. He looked across the parking lot. "I should have gone more," he said. "I know that." She waited again. "Let me help manage whatever this is," he continued. "If the company comes through the estate, we can keep it organized. Why would you manage it?" "Because you're working grocery shifts and sleeping on somebody's couch." There it was, concern with a measuring tape inside it. "You asked Dana?" "Mom did." "Tell Mom to stop calling people about me. She's worried. She gave away my room. She and Dad gave me a house because I needed it. And now you think you need 6 buildings. I didn't say that. You said we could manage them, together." Jack stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Look, if this is about the jukebox, I'll buy it back." Chloe stared at him. "You said it wasn't worth the gas." "I was being stupid." "How much?" $2,000. The offer was large enough to sound serious and small enough to be insulting if the jukebox held anything else. "What would you do with it?" "Keep it in the family. It is in the family." "You know what I mean." "No, I really don't." Jack rubbed his forehead. "Dad thinks there may be company papers hidden in it." "So he sent you to buy it?" "He didn't send me." "Does he know you're here?" Jack didn't answer quickly enough. Chloe stepped away. Don't come to my work again. I'm trying to make this easier. For who? She walked to the bus stop before he could answer. Brian was still at the shop when she arrived later. A lamp glowed over the workbench. The jukebox's rear panel rested against the wall. He held up a printed annual report. Your grandfather filed every year. I saw. You also see who's in the parking lot? Chloe turned. Jack's truck had followed the bus. It slowed outside the shop, then continued down the street. He offered me $2,000 for the jukebox. Brian set down the report. That's generous for something worth 50 in scrap. Dad thinks more papers are inside. Do you? I think Grandpa wanted somebody to look. Brian pulled a stool beside the machine. Then we keep looking. They returned to the restoration. The old amplifier came free after 2 stubborn bolts. Brian set it aside for testing. Chloe cleaned the record carriage and photographed each wire before disconnecting it. Near midnight, they reached the coin mechanism. The metal box held several old tokens and 3 quarters darkened with age. Chloe tipped them into a tray. Brian examined the empty compartment. This was replaced. How can you tell? The mounting holes don't line up. He pressed the inside floor with one thumb. The metal shifted. Chloe heard a faint click beneath it. Brian pressed again. The bottom of the coin box lifted slightly along one edge. He withdrew his hand. That isn't supposed to move. Don't touch it yet, Chloe said. Brian looked at her. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it? That line sounds familiar. She found the phone in her coat and started recording. Brian pressed the metal floor again. One side rose while the other remained fixed. He examined the corners with a flashlight. There's a spring catch under the coin return. Can you reach it? Probably. Carefully. He gave her another look, then slipped a narrow tool beneath the mechanism. Something released. The false bottom lifted on 2 tiny hinges. Inside lay a white envelope and a brass key attached to a green plastic tag. The tag carried a bank name and a 4-digit box number. The envelope was addressed in Gregory's handwriting. To the one who still comes on Sundays. Chloe stopped recording. Brian didn't move. He knew, she said. He knew somebody would find it. No, he knew who. Her name wasn't written there. It didn't need to be. For years, Sunday had belonged to Chloe and Gregory. Jack stopped visiting regularly when he was 18. Christian treated Sundays as his day to avoid downtown traffic and diner smells. Rebecca came when there was a holiday meal to organize. Chloe came because Gregory was waiting. She lifted the envelope from the compartment. The paper was newer than the lease. The glue opened easily beneath her thumb. Inside was a handwritten letter folded around a second sheet. The second sheet appeared to be a bank receipt, dated August of 2024. Chloe began reading. If you found this, you listen to the machine. She paused. Brian sat on the stool across from her. Keep going. Chloe returned to the letter. Gregory wrote that Higgins Grill had never made him rich all at once. It made a little money each day. He saved what he could, bought one building, then another, and kept the rents low enough that working people could stay. He had watched property values rise. He had also watched owners remove tenants, repaint rooms, and charge twice as much. He didn't want that done in his name. The buildings belonged to G.H. Community Properties. The company had been placed in the Gregory O. Higgins Revocable Trust in 2024. The formal trust, company ledger, deeds, bank records, and tenant rent schedule were stored in the safe deposit box. Gregory had named a successor trustee through what he called the Sunday condition. The trustee was to be the grandchild who still came on Sundays, listened before deciding, and understood that a building was a responsibility before it was an asset. The letter ended with Chloe's name, not in the legal paragraph, not as an instruction, just a few plain words. Chloe, you kept coming when I had nothing interesting left to offer. That told me what I needed to know. She lowered the page. Brian looked at the floor. What does the rest say? He asked. That I'm supposed to go to the bank with the trust lawyer. Does it name the lawyer? She unfolded the final section. A Cambridge attorney named Evelyn Carter had prepared the trust. Her office telephone number appeared below her name. Brian knew the name. She retired last year, he said. I saw something in the paper. Then what happens? Her files went somewhere. We call. Chloe read Gregory's letter once more. The words didn't make her feel wealthy. They made her feel observed. While she'd been eating soup at his apartment and washing his one good saucepan, Gregory had been deciding whether she could protect 6 buildings. I'm 19, she said. He knew I stock shelves. He knew that too. I don't know anything about trusts. That can be learned. What if I'm bad at it? Then learn before you make decisions. Brian said it without trying to reassure her. Chloe needed that. She placed the letter and bank receipt into separate sleeves. The key went into a small parts envelope. Do we call my family? We call the lawyer named in the letter. It took 3 phone calls to locate Evelyn Carter's files. Her former practice had merged with another firm in Easton. A legal assistant confirmed there was a Gregory Higgins file, but she wouldn't discuss it until Chloe provided identification and a copy of the letter. Chloe sent the copy from Brian's office printer. The return call came an hour later. Yes, the assistant said. We have a trust file dated 2024. Chloe gripped the phone. Does it name me? I can't read trust terms over the phone. An attorney will meet with you tomorrow. What should I bring? Photo identification, the letter, the key, and any probate paperwork you received. Will my family be told? If the trust affects an open estate, the interested parties will receive proper notice. That means yes. It means the attorney has duties beyond this phone call. After she hung up, Chloe sat behind Brian's desk. The open jukebox stood across the room. What did you think was inside? She asked him. A note about replacement tubes. You're lying. I thought there might be cash. How much? Maybe a few hundred, not 6 buildings. No. Brian returned the false bottom to its raised position. Gregory installed this later. The metal is newer. In 2024? Probably. I didn't see him do this part. So he came back to the diner? He still had keys. Chloe held up the brass key from the compartment. He had a lot of keys. The meeting in Easton lasted most of the next morning. The attorney showed Chloe a copy of the trust, but explained that the signed original remained in the bank box. Gregory had transferred his entire membership interest in GH Community Properties into the trust. If the original matched the file copy, the company had never belonged to the probate estate. The successor provision named Chloe directly. Beside her name, Gregory had added the phrase, "who still comes on Sundays." It isn't a test you have to complete now, the attorney explained. It records why he selected you. So, my brother can't start coming on Sundays. The attorney almost smiled. No? What about the buildings? If the trust is valid, you become successor trustee. That means you manage them for the purposes Gregory set out. Do I own them? The trust owns the company. As trustee, you control it. You're also the remaining beneficiary after the obligations in the trust are met. Chloe thought of Maria's broken stair. Can I pay for repairs? Once authority is confirmed and accounts are transferred, yes. How long does that take? Your grandfather's death certificate must be filed. The bank must release the original. Notices must go out. Because there's an open probate matter and previously undisclosed property, other family members may challenge the trust. Can they win? They can try. By afternoon, Christian had received notice. He called Chloe 9 times. She answered the 10th call outside Gray's shop. What did you find? He asked. A letter and a bank key. You went to an attorney before calling me. Grandpa told me to. He's dead, Chloe. The words came out harder than Christian intended. She was silent. He tried again. You should have brought this to Mr. Phelps. The letter named another lawyer. What does it say? That there's a trust, Christian breathed once sharply. And the company is in it. Who's trustee? You already know. Another silence. Come to Phelps's office, he said. We're meeting at 4. Who's we? Your mother, Jack, Mr. Phelps, and me. Why? Because 6 buildings have appeared in the middle of Dad's estate. They didn't appear. They've been there. 4 o'clock. Christian ended the call. Mr. Phelps looked less comfortable than he had during the estate division. Copies of the trust notice sat before him. Rebecca held a tissue she didn't need. Jack kept one hand on his closed blue folder. Christian remained standing. Read the line, he told Mr. Phelps. The lawyer looked at the document. Christian read it. Mr. Phelps adjusted his glasses. The successor trustee shall be Chloe Higgins, my granddaughter, who still comes on Sundays. Christian laughed once. That was meant for me. Chloe sat across from him. My name is in it. The insult was meant for me. Rebecca reached toward his arm. He pulled away. My father spent years acting like that diner made him better than everybody. I worked somewhere clean. I wore a tie. I paid my bills. and he treated me like I'd betrayed him. You called his work embarrassing, Chloe said. It was embarrassing. He'd come to my office smelling like the grill. Jack looked down. Christian noticed. You thought it too. I didn't say I didn't. You stopped visiting because you couldn't stand sitting in that place. Jack's jaw tightened. This isn't about the diner. It's all about the diner. Dad hid property for decades, then left it to the only person who kept pretending his little Sunday routine was sacred. Chloe felt the letter inside her bag. I wasn't pretending. Christian looked at her. For the first time, his motive stood without the concern he usually placed around it. He didn't only want control of the company, he wanted Gregory's decision corrected. If Chloe remained trustee, then Gregory's final judgment of his son would remain in the family record. Rebecca spoke more softly. Your father isn't asking to take everything from you. What is he asking? For the trust to be reviewed. Properly. Jack opened his folder. We could divide the properties. The trust says not to. We haven't seen the original. You haven't. His eyes flicked toward her bag. Chloe placed both hands over it. Mr. Phelps raised one palm. No one is taking documents here. Christian sat at last. My father was 80. He was sick. A 19-year-old visited every Sunday, and suddenly she controls property he never disclosed. He prepared it with a lawyer, Chloe said. That doesn't mean he understood what he was doing. He ran 6 buildings without you knowing. Christian's face reddened. Rebecca stepped in. Jack has a family. He has experience dealing with contractors and insurance. You don't. So that's why he should get the house and the company. He has people depending on him. You keep saying that, like nobody can depend on me. Jack leaned forward. I'm not trying to cut you out. What are you trying to do? Keep the buildings from being trapped forever under old rents. The room went quiet. He had finally said the part hidden inside his offers to help. Jack saw 6 properties as family capital. Gregory's promise to the tenants looked like a restriction on what those properties could become. We don't even know what they're worth, Chloe said. That's why they need professional management. So, the rent goes up? So the buildings support themselves. Maria's rent is paid. One tenant isn't the whole company. No. There are people in 6 buildings. Jack shut the folder. And you met one of them yesterday. That doesn't make you responsible for all of them. Buying the jukebox wouldn't make you responsible either. Rebecca looked between them. What does the jukebox have to do with managing property? Jack offered me $2,000 for it. Christian turned toward him. You did what? Jack's face changed. I was trying to keep it safe. You said you were going to talk to her. I did, without making offers. You were going to take it apart anyway. Mr. Phelps removed his glasses. Stop. Nobody did. Christian pointed at Chloe's bag. The original trust is in that bank box. Until it's examined, none of this is settled. The lawyer put his glasses back on. There is a 60-day period in which an interested party can file a challenge after notice. If that is what you intend, say so clearly. Christian looked at Chloe. Rebecca watched him, hoping he would choose a softer word. Jack wanted the challenge. He also wanted his father to be the one who demanded it. We're contesting it, Christian said. All of it. Mr. Phelps wrote the date on a legal pad. You have 60 days from formal notice, he said. During that time, nobody should sell, transfer, or encumber company property. Can Chloe collect rent? Jack asked. That depends on whether the bank accepts her authority. Christian gathered his papers. We'll ask a judge to freeze everything. Mr. Phelps looked at him. The accounts may already be restricted because Gregory died. Don't turn routine safeguards into evidence of wrongdoing. Christian left without saying goodbye. Rebecca paused beside Chloe's chair. You can still settle this privately. What does privately mean? Give Jack a management role. Let your father oversee the accounts. Keep something for yourself. And Maria? I don't know Maria. That's the problem. Rebecca's face closed. She followed Christian into the hall. Jack remained near the door. You could have told me no without telling Dad. I did tell you no. You embarrassed me. You offered to buy the jukebox because you thought legal papers were inside. I offered because you need money. I needed a room. Jack left. The bank wouldn't open the box the next morning. The key was genuine. The trust copy named Chloe. Gregory's death certificate had been filed. Still, the bank's legal department required a formal certification from the Easton attorney. Chloe sat in a small waiting room while the attorney worked through the requirements by phone. Brian had driven her there, but he stayed in the lobby. He wasn't a trustee, relative, lawyer, or bank customer. Old loyalty didn't give him access. After 2 hours, a bank officer entered with a printed document. "We can allow an inventory opening," she said. "Nothing leaves until each item is listed and copied. Can my family stop it? They can challenge your authority in court. They can't prevent us from identifying the contents." The safe deposit room was quieter than Chloe expected. There were no dramatic vault wheels or guards standing nearby. The bank officer unlocked a gate, then led Chloe and the attorney to a wall of small metal doors. Chloe inserted Gregory's key. The bank officer used a second key beside it. Together, they opened box number 4216. The metal drawer was long and narrow. It felt heavier than it looked. They carried it into a private room. Chloe lifted the lid. 6 thick folders filled most of the box. A 7th held a blue binder with GH Community Properties printed on the spine. The signed trust lay beneath it. Gregory's signature appeared on the final page beside a notary seal dated August of 2024. Chloe compared it with the old Lease photograph. The hand had changed over 50 years. The large G remained the same. The attorney read the document carefully. "This matches our file copy. Is it valid? It appears properly executed. What would make it invalid? Proof that Gregory lacked capacity, signed under pressure, or failed to transfer the company into it. He signed it in your office, in the retired attorney's office. The file includes her notes and witness information." The bank officer opened the company binder. Inside was an assignment of Gregory's complete ownership interest in GH Community Properties to the trust. It carried the same date as the trust. There was also a company resolution recognizing Chloe as successor manager when she became trustee. "So this proves it?" Chloe asked. "It creates a strong chain," the attorney said. "We still verify the company filings and compare the property records. One folder contained rent schedules, another held insurance policies. Each building had a repair history written in Gregory's hand. At the front of Maria's folder, he had written, "Back stairs, full replacement, spring." Chloe touched the note. A bank statement showed a company reserve account. It held enough for repairs and several months of operating costs, but not enough to make 6 old buildings trouble-free. Gregory hadn't left a pile of spare money. He had left buildings that needed heat, roofs, insurance, and judgment. The final folder contained copies of deeds and property tax receipts. Every tax bill was current. The bank officer entered each item on an inventory sheet. The originals remained in the box while the bank's legal department reviewed the certification. Chloe left with stamped copies and a written acknowledgement that she had presented herself as successor trustee. It wasn't full control yet. It was proof that control had been prepared for her. Elijah met them after lunch at the county office. He compared the deed copies from the bank with the recorded book and page numbers. Each one matched. Then he examined the company assignment and trust certification. "I'm not authenticating the trust as a lawyer," he said. "I can confirm these property descriptions match the county records." "That's what we need," Chloe said. He checked all 6 legal descriptions. The Washington Street parcel included the empty commercial space below the apartments. The Choptank Avenue deed covered both units and the rear yard. None of the property lines overlapped or depended on an unrecorded agreement. Elijah printed a parcel map. "Keep this with the certified deeds. Would you testify to this? If I receive a proper request, I can testify about county records." The question made the hearing feel real. Until then, the challenge had sounded like another family argument held in a nicer room. Outside, Brian waited beside the van. "Well, the records match? All 6? All 6. He opened the passenger door. "What now?" "The attorney referred me to a property manager. That sounds fast. It's an appraisal first." "Who?" "Amber Lambert." Brian knew the name. Amber's company managed apartment buildings across the Eastern Shore. She had also bought neglected properties, repaired them, and sold some at a profit. "She won't treat this like a hobby," he said. "I don't need a hobby. No. You need somebody who'll tell you what the problems cost." Amber met Chloe at Choptank Avenue 2 days later. She wore boots, carried a tablet, and began with the roof instead of the rent. She photographed the sagging gutter, measured the rear steps, and checked the foundation near the side passage. Maria watched from her kitchen doorway. "This is the manager?" she asked Chloe. "An appraiser. Is she buying the building? No, Amber heard. Not unless someone asked me to make an offer. Nobody asked, Maria said. Then I'm not buying it. That answer earned her entry into the upstairs apartment. Amber inspected the window frames, radiator valves, plumbing beneath the sink, and staining near the bathroom ceiling. She asked Maria how quickly Gregory answered repair calls. If it was water, same day, Maria said. If it was paint, whenever he got tired of hearing me mention it. Amber entered notes. Did he raise rent after repairs? No. Did he charge late fees? He charged me a cup of coffee if I was late. Amber looked at Chloe. That won't work as a written policy. I know. At each property, the same pattern appeared. The buildings had been maintained, but Gregory had deferred larger work during his final 2 years. 2 roofs would need replacement. The Washington Street storefront required electrical upgrades before anyone could use it. 1 boiler was nearing the end of its reliable life. Amber spoke with tenants where they allowed it. She never promised what Chloe couldn't yet authorize. At High Street, she showed Chloe a crack above a rear window. That may be ordinary settling. It may not. Get an engineer before anyone patches it. How much? For the inspection, manageable. If the wall is moving, more. Chloe wrote it down. By the end of the second day, Amber had building measurements, rent rolls, tax figures, and repair estimates. She met Chloe and Brian at Higgins Grill because Chloe didn't have an office. They sat in a booth near the covered jukebox space. Amber spread papers across the table, while Chloe held a flashlight above them. Your grandfather kept expenses low because he did too much himself, Amber said. You can't continue that. I wasn't planning to. You'll need licensed trades, formal leases, separate deposits, annual inspections, and a reserve plan. Can the current rents cover that? Not all of it. Maria's rent sat well below the local market. Several others did too. Chloe waited for Amber to say they had to rise. Amber tapped the expense sheet. The trust requires fair rent management. Fair doesn't have to mean frozen forever. It does mean you don't shock people out of their homes. What would you do? Small scheduled increases where needed, hardship protections, and no change for Maria while her unit remains financially supportable. Why Maria? Her rent is low, but the building is paid off. The other unit carries most operating costs. Removing her would change the profit more than it changes the company. Brian leaned against the counter. That's a cold way to say she can stay. Cold numbers are useful when someone tries to use warm words to push her out. Chloe studied the repair plan. What are the buildings worth? Amber turned to the final page. Individually, the estimates vary. Together, with the commercial space and current occupancy, about $2,400,000. The amount didn't fit inside the dark diner. Chloe looked toward the covered windows. $2,400,000? That's an appraisal, not money in your account. I understand. Do you? Amber's question wasn't unkind. If you sold everything, transaction costs and taxes would reduce the total. If you keep everything, you inherit repairs, tenant law, bookkeeping, emergencies, and people calling when pipes break. Would you buy them? Yes. Brian shifted. Amber continued before he spoke. I'd also manage them without buying them. Why offer both? Because Chloe needs to know the real choices. Amber placed 2 draft documents on the table. The first was a non-binding purchase estimate. The second was a management proposal. Her company would collect rents, coordinate licensed repairs, maintain records, and follow the trust's affordability terms. Chloe would remain trustee and approve major decisions. The fee came from rental income, not from Chloe's $600. I won't sign anything until the court confirms authority, Amber said. But this is what I'm prepared to offer. Chloe looked at the purchase estimate. Selling would remove the emergencies. It would also remove the promise. She pushed that document aside and kept the management proposal. I want to understand this one. Amber nodded. They spent another hour going through it line by line. When they finished, Chloe returned the trust copies to the document case. The original lease went beside them. 6 buildings, the company assignment, Gregory's signature, and the value estimate now followed one clear line from the false jukebox panel to her hands. She locked the case and kept the key. 3 weeks later, Maria called before 7 in the morning. There's a notice on my front door. What notice? It says property inspection and redevelopment review. Chloe sat up on Dana's couch. Who signed it? Jack Higgins. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday at noon. Tenants were asked to provide access to every unit. The notice described Jack as the family's property representative. Chloe asked Maria to photograph it. Jack's phone went straight to voicemail. Christian answered. "Did you authorize this?" "Authorize what?" "Jack posted inspection notices at Choptank Avenue. He's gathering information." "For who?" "For the family. He isn't the manager. Neither are you until the court says so." "That doesn't make him manager." Christian lowered his voice. "We have a potential buyer willing to look at the whole portfolio. You can't sell it. We can receive offers." "Then why does the notice say redevelopment?" "Because an investor won't make an offer without inspecting. Maria lives there." "Yes, Chloe. People live in rental buildings. She's not letting strangers into her apartment. The lease probably allows reasonable inspection." "You haven't read her lease." Christian was silent for a moment. "This is why you shouldn't manage property. You treat every ordinary business step like a personal betrayal." "What's the buyer's name?" "You'll meet them Saturday." "I didn't agree to a meeting. It's already arranged." Chloe ended the call and rang Amber. Amber read the notice photograph while they spoke. "Jack has no confirmed authority," she said. "Can I cancel it?" "You can tell the tenants they don't have to grant access. Don't tear down the notice. Keep the original as evidence." "Should we call the police?" "Not unless someone tries to enter by force. This is an ownership dispute, and the police won't decide it on a front step." "What do I do?" "Be there. Make it clear the meeting is recorded. Ask who claims authority and let them answer." Chloe understood. Don't argue. Ask clear questions. People reveal more when they believe explanations belong to them. By Saturday, every tenant had heard about the possible sale. Chloe arranged a meeting in the paved rear yard at Choptank Avenue. Folding chairs came from Higgins Grill. Brian brought them in his van, along with lumber for the back stairs. The carpenter had finally inspected the damage. The trust account remained restricted, so Chloe paid the deposit from her remaining money. Brian refused to let her pay for the temporary materials. Maria made coffee and carried it outside in a large metal pot. Elijah arrived with certified copies of the 6 deed summaries and the parcel map. Chloe had asked him to explain what the public record showed, nothing more. He made that limit clear before he sat down. "I can identify recorded owners," he said. "I can't tell anybody who should win a trust case." "That's all we need," Chloe told him. Amber stayed near the back gate with her tablet. She had no agreement yet, but she had completed the appraisal and didn't want tenants frightened into signing papers they didn't understand. Chloe placed her phone on a table beside the coffee. "This meeting is being recorded," she said. "If anyone doesn't agree, say so before we start." Nobody objected. At 12:10, Jack entered through the side passage. He wore a sport coat and carried a leather folder. Christian and Rebecca followed him. A man in a navy overcoat came behind them. He introduced himself as a representative of a development group from Annapolis. Jack looked around the yard. "You turned this into a tenant meeting. It concerns tenants. It was supposed to be an inspection. Who authorized the inspection?" Christian stepped forward. "I did. In what capacity?" "As executor of my father's estate." Elijah looked down at the papers in his lap. Chloe didn't reach for them. The developer representative glanced at Jack. "You said the estate controlled the company." "It does," Jack said. Chloe watched him. "Are you sure?" "The trust is being challenged." "That wasn't my question." Jack opened his folder. "We're not going to conduct a legal hearing in somebody's backyard." "No," Maria said. "You're going to explain why your name is on my door." Jack offered her a practiced smile. "This is only an evaluation. Nobody is being removed today." "Today?" Rebecca moved closer to Maria. "You must be Maria. Chloe has told us about you. She told you my rent too?" Rebecca hesitated. "Only that Gregory helped you. I paid rent for 52 years. That isn't charity." "Of course not." Jack handed a packet to the developer representative. The top page carried GH Community Properties in large letters. Beneath it was a proposed letter of intent to sell all 6 buildings as a group. Chloe could see Christian's signature on the last page. Jack had signed below it as family property representative. "Is that an offer?" she asked. "It's a starting point," Jack said. "An offer from who?" The representative named his development group. "What happens to the tenants?" "We'd review every lease." "That doesn't answer her," Maria said. The man remained polite. "Some units would need renovation. We normally provide relocation assistance where required." "Required by who?" "By applicable law and the sale agreement." Jack looked toward the building. "These properties need major work. That's what Chloe isn't telling everybody. I told them repairs are needed. Did you tell them 2 roofs have to be replaced? Yes. The boiler? Yes. The commercial wiring? That building isn't here. It's part of the portfolio. Chloe kept her hands away from the document case beside Brian's chair, and Jack believed the repair list gave him control of the conversation. He had taken details from the appraisal materials produced during the legal challenge, then arranged them into a reason to sell. Are you promising the buyer vacant buildings? Chloe asked. No. Are you promising empty units? We're discussing options. What options? Jack turned to the tenants. Some of you may prefer a payment to relocate. Nobody's forcing anything. A sale could put money in everyone's hands. Maria laughed without humor. How much money goes in your hand? That's not fair. You came to my house. Jack's face tightened. The developer representative opened the proposed agreement. There is a clause allowing the purchaser to negotiate voluntary move-outs before closing. Chloe looked at Jack. Before closing? It would make renovations easier. You don't own the company. The family owns it. The trust owns it. The trust may be invalid. So, you're trying to empty buildings while the court decides? Christian stepped between them. No one is emptying anything. Jack is trying to preserve value your grandfather neglected. Maria stood. Gregory didn't neglect me. This isn't about you personally. It is when your papers are about my stairs. Rebecca looked at the phone, recording the meeting. She had spent weeks hearing versions of the same sentence from friends and relatives. Chloe found an old lease. Chloe found buildings. Chloe was chosen because she visited on Sundays. To Rebecca, each telling made the family sound worse. She pointed toward the phone. Is this what you're telling people? I'm telling them what happened. Rebecca's voice sharpened. Her parents gave the house to her brother. At 19, Grandpa's jukebox panel hid an apartment lease. She said it like a headline she expected everyone to find ridiculous. Nobody laughed. Rebecca looked around the yard. That's the little version, isn't it? The version where your father and I threw you away, and your grandfather rescued you from us. I didn't write a version. You brought county staff and a property manager to a backyard. Elijah is here to explain public records. Amber is here because she inspected the buildings. Jack stared at Amber. You gave Chloe an offer. I gave her choices, Amber said. What's your purchase number? That is confidential. I'm family. You aren't my client. Jack turned back to the developer representative. We're prepared to proceed despite her interference. Chloe said nothing. Jack opened his folder and removed 6 tenant acknowledgement forms. These only confirmed that you received notice of a potential ownership change. Maria took one. The first paragraph referred to pending redevelopment and voluntary relocation discussions. The second allowed property access for inspection with 24 hours notice. I'm not signing this, she said. You're not agreeing to move. I'm agreeing to let you in, for an inspection. You put a paper on my door before you asked. Jack offered forms to the other tenants. No one took them. His control began to slip. Christian could see it and wanted him to stop. Jack had already brought a buyer, signed a proposed sale paper, and described himself as a representative. Stopping now would make all of it look exactly as Chloe claimed. He set the forms on the table. We have a responsibility to protect a family asset. Chloe finally asked the question Amber had told her to save. Are you claiming authority to negotiate the sale of all 6 properties? Yes. Christian turned toward him. Jack, you signed the letter. As executor, subject to court approval. Jack looked directly at Chloe. The answer is yes. If the trust is set aside, Dad controls the company through the estate. We're preparing for that outcome. And before it's set aside, we're allowed to plan. Are you asking tenants to sign documents that help the buyer before the hearing? I'm asking them to cooperate. Do you expect the buyer to rely on your signature? Yes. The developer representative cleared his throat. Our letter is non-binding and contingent on verified authority. But you came to inspect occupied units, based on representations made to us, by Jack and Mr. Christian Higgins. Christian's face lost color. Elijah looked at the recording phone, then at the signed letter in Jack's folder. Brian hadn't spoken since the meeting began. He watched Jack place one document after another into a record nobody had forced him to create. Chloe let the silence continue. Jack mistook it for uncertainty. You're overwhelmed, he said. That's obvious. You found papers in a jukebox and decided you could run a property company. You can't. Dad and I have spent our whole lives making serious decisions. Did Grandpa know about this buyer? He's gone. That wasn't my question. He turned down offers because he was stubborn. So, you're finishing what he refused? I'm doing what he should have done years ago. Maria placed the unsigned form on top of Jack's folder. There, she said, now we know. Jack looked at her. You don't understand the condition of these buildings. I understand the condition of your offer. The developer representative closed his own folder. We won't inspect occupied units without tenant consent. Jack stepped toward him. We discussed this. We discussed access being arranged. It is arranged. No, Maria said. It isn't. Christian told Jack they should leave. Jack didn't move. He had entered the yard expecting tenants to see an owner. Now the only way he could preserve that appearance was to insist on authority he didn't have. He turned to Chloe. When the court sets that trust aside, this company will be managed properly. Every lease will be reviewed. Every building will be valued at what it can actually earn. If people don't like the new terms, they can make other arrangements. The recording phone caught every word. Chloe still didn't open the document case. She didn't show the certified deeds, Gregory's assignment, Amber's management proposal, or the bank's acknowledgement of her authority. She only looked at the time on the phone. 1:12, she said. The meeting is over. Christian left first. Rebecca followed without looking at Chloe. The developer representative collected no signatures. Jack took the letter of intent from the table, but Maria's unsigned form remained on top. He folded both into his leather folder and walked through the gate. Elijah waited until Jack was gone. I'll need to make a written account of what I witnessed, he said. Maria picked up the coffee pot. Make 2 copies. Chloe stopped the recording and saved it in 3 places. Then she put the phone beside the locked document case. The hearing was 9 days away. 9 days later, Chloe entered the Dorchester County Courthouse, carrying the locked document case. Christian, Rebecca, and Jack sat behind their attorney. Jack's leather folder rested beneath his chair. Maria wore a dark blue coat. Brian had put on a tie that sat crooked beneath his collar. Elijah carried certified records in a county envelope. Amber waited with her appraisal and repair plan. The judge began with the question beneath every family argument. Did G.H. Community Properties belong to Gregory Higgins's probate estate when he died? Christian's attorney said yes. He argued that Gregory had hidden the company, excluded his son, and placed control with a granddaughter too young to understand the responsibility. Chloe's attorney opened the document case. The answer is in the chain of records, she said. Maria testified first. She identified her signature on the 1974 lease. She described paying rent to Gregory for 52 years and producing the December receipt from G.H. Community Properties. Did Mr. Higgins discuss what would happen after his death? Chloe's attorney asked. He said somebody would come. Did he promise you free housing? No. He promised fair rent and repairs. Did Chloe ask you for money when she arrived? No. What did she do? She told me to keep January's rent until she knew who had authority. Then she carried out my trash because the back stairs were broken. Christian looked down. Brian took the witness chair next. He described opening the jukebox with Chloe and hearing the hollow panel. He identified Gregory's work inside the cabinet. You personally saw him construct part of that compartment? The attorney asked. In 1998, I watched him remove the old panel and rebuild it. He wouldn't tell me why. Did Chloe know what was behind it? No. Did you? No. The lease entered the record beside photographs of the false panel. The handwritten letter and safe deposit key followed. Elijah then opened the county envelope. He matched the lease address to the Choptank Avenue deed. He authenticated the recorded transfer into G.H. Community Properties and the 5 later property deeds. All 6 remain titled to the company? The judge asked. Yes. And the company filing identifies Gregory O'Higgins? Yes. The signed trust came next. The bank's original matched the attorney's file copy. The notary record matched. Gregory's assignment transferred his entire company interest into the trust in August of 2024. The judge read the successor provision aloud. Chloe Higgins, my granddaughter, who still comes on Sundays. Christian shifted in his chair. His attorney argued Gregory had been confused and overly dependent on Chloe. The preparation file showed otherwise. Gregory had met his attorney alone twice. He had described all 6 buildings correctly, reviewed the tenant protections, and returned later to sign. Then Chloe's attorney played the backyard recording. Jack's voice filled the courtroom. "We're prepared to proceed despite her interference." The judge listened as Jack claimed authority to negotiate the sale. She heard him ask tenants to cooperate before the hearing. She heard his final statement about reviewing every lease and requiring people who disliked new terms to make other arrangements. Jack's proposed letter of intent became an exhibit. The judge looked at him. "Did you sign this as family property representative?" "Yes, but it was non-binding." "Who appointed you?" "My father. Mr. Christian Higgins didn't control the company. We believed the trust would be set aside. So you acted as though it already had been." Jack's attorney touched his sleeve, but the answer had already reached the room. Amber's appraisal established what the fight concerned. She explained that the buildings were worth about $2,400,000. She also explained the roofs, boiler, wiring, fair rent terms, and management costs. "Could the portfolio be sold?" the judge asked. "Yes." "Could it remain financially workable under Gregory's terms?" "Yes, with professional management and planned repairs." "Who requested that plan?" "Chloe." The judge took a recess. Chloe waited in the hall beside Maria. Nobody spoke about winning. Maria wanted to know when the carpenter could finish her stairs. "He starts Monday," Chloe said, "if the court says yes." When they returned, the judge ruled from the bench. The company transfer had occurred before Gregory's death. The 6 buildings were not probate assets. The trust was valid. The Sunday wording explained Gregory's choice rather than creating an uncertain future test, and Chloe was confirmed as successor trustee. The challenge was denied. The judge addressed Jack directly. Preparing a sale while authority remained disputed showed poor judgment. Attempting to obtain tenant cooperation under a title you didn't hold showed worse. No additional punishment was imposed. The letter hadn't become a binding sale, and no tenant had signed. The consequence was simpler. Jack had given the court a clear reason not to trust him with access. Outside, Christian stopped Chloe near the courthouse steps. "Are you shutting us out completely?" "From the company, yes. I'm your father. That doesn't make you trustee." Rebecca stood beside him, holding her handbag against her coat. "What about the house?" she asked. "What about it? You could come back?" Jack looked toward the street. The offer arrived too late. They all knew it. "I don't want my old room back," Chloe said. "I want my things that are still there. After that, Jack can keep the house." Christian's face tightened. "So, that's it? No? That's the boundary." Jack stepped forward. "I shouldn't have brought the buyer." "No, I thought if I got ahead of everything, Dad would see I could handle it." Christian heard him. Jack hadn't only wanted the buildings. He had wanted to remain the person his parents chose first. Chloe didn't rescue him from the admission. "You scared people in their homes," she said. "I know. You don't get access to the properties. I understand." She wasn't ready to forgive him. He wasn't ready to understand everything he had done. For that day, honesty was enough. Chloe signed Amber's management agreement after the bank released the company accounts. She declined the purchase offer. Maria's back stairs were replaced first. Chloe arrived while the carpenter fitted the final tread. Maria tested the new railing with both hands. "Solid," she said. "That's the idea." "And the rent?" "Exactly where Gregory left it." Maria nodded, then handed Chloe the envelope marked Gregory. Chloe gave her a new receipt from GH Community Properties. This time, Chloe's signature appeared at the bottom. Higgins' Grill took longer. The estate still owned the diner, so Chloe didn't simply claim it. An independent appraisal set the price. Amber helped prepare the company records, and a local bank approved a modest business loan supported by the rental income. At the closing, Mr. Phelps slid the diner key across the table. It stopped beside Chloe's hand, just as it had in February. "The building is yours now," he said. "The trust's," she corrected. Mr. Phelps smiled. "You've been paying attention." Brian repaired the wiring, while contractors fixed the roof and kitchen ventilation. Chloe stripped the pale grease from the walls. Maria chose green vinyl for the repaired booths because Gregory had once said red showed every crack. The jukebox returned last. Brian and Chloe rolled it through the front door on the same hydraulic dolly. Its chrome shone again. The cracked plastic had been replaced, but Gregory's handwritten song labels remained. Brian connected the restored power cord. "You do it," he said. Chloe pressed the switch. The cabinet lit red and yellow. The record carriage moved, paused, and selected an old soul record. Music filled the diner. Brian listened for a rattle near the speaker. "There," he said. "Left side. You always find something." Machines tell on themselves. They adjusted the grill until the sound came through clean. On reopening morning, Amber took a booth near the window and reviewed repair invoices over coffee. Maria sat at the counter. Brian had a permanent workbench in the back room and a standing promise of breakfast whenever he came through the door. Christian and Rebecca didn't attend. Jack arrived near closing with Chloe's old chair in the bed of his truck. "I should have brought it sooner," he said. "Yes." He carried it inside and placed it in Gregory's old office. They didn't hug. Chloe made him coffee. He paid for it and left a normal tip. That was the beginning of whatever came next, not the completion of it. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. The following Sunday, sunlight reached through the clean front windows and warmed the counter. Maria laughed with Brian near the coffee machine. A customer dropped a coin into the restored jukebox, and Gregory's old selection began to play. Chloe stood beneath the relit Higgins grill sign, listening as the cabinet hummed in its old corner, finally fully home.